Can we stop all of the foolishness about who is going to be the next face of the NBA? There is simply no conversation. There's no comparison. There is a man who walks amongst us who is 7'4" with an 8-foot wingspan and is named after a highly classified US Air Force base that is known to investigate UFOs. I don't care that he's from another country. I don't care if you have concerns about his injury health, because those are largely unfounded, with the exception of this fluke and not expected to be a long-term problem with blood clots. And today we are breaking down why there is not even a debate that needs to happen. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. We are pumping out strong opinions always. And let me tell you why it is Victor Wembanyama and nobody else for the next decade and a half. I will shout from the mountaintops that there is no competition between who is about to take over this league, because it starts off with the argument that if Luka or Giannis or Tatum or Anthony Edwards is not the face of the NBA by now, then they simply will not be. So that's the first point. But let's get to the second, more substantial point. And that's the fact that the face of the NBA for the last half a century has been a man who has done things that we simply have never seen before. The current face of the NBA is 41 or 42-year-old LeBron James, who is playing into his mid-40s, and some still consider him to be a top 5 player in the NBA. We have never once seen a guy come from high school and step on the court as a rookie and be the best player in the NBA, and still doing it 20 some odd years later. Before him, we can debate if it was Shaq or Kobe, but there's a lot of romanticization about Kobe now that he's gone. And I'm not here to discount the things that he's done on the court, but there is a big reason that Shaq, many people consider the most marketable face of the NBA, and that's because someone who weighs over 300 pounds should not be able to dominate athletically the way that Shaq did amongst other much more skilled bigs. In the 1970s, there was a man named Lou Alcindor, who you probably know as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And in the 1970s, were there a bunch of guys walking around the league with that type of unparalleled skill? The man created a patented shot in the hook shot that some consider to be the most unstoppable shot or move in all of sports, especially during that time period. He ultimately became the league's all-time scorer, which we know the current face of the NBA, LeBron James, just broke. And Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in the 80s shared that crown, because how many 6'10" point guards were there distributing the rock before Magic, and how many white guys could shoot it the way that Larry Bird did, especially at his size? Do we need to go into why Michael Jordan is still widely considered the best player by most casual NBA fans? You can't sit here and say that anybody's ever seen that, except for maybe Kobe 2.0, and Anthony Edwards has given him a little run for his money currently with his play style. And that's kind of my point. If you are a replica of someone who has come before you, there's no way that you're going to be able to take over this league. And that's partially the reason that Steph Curry, although he's had a ton of success in the playoffs and finals and is widely considered the best shooter in the history of the game, we still have seen other prolific three-point shooters who made that the center of their game. Curry puts his own little spin on it and can score at all 3 levels, but it's not like we haven't seen a prolific scorer take over the league before. Now let's get down to some of the other telling things and numbers that we simply cannot ignore, and we need to give Victor Wembanyama his full due. And I know you're going to argue with me in the comments, and I welcome it, because I've got not only just my personal feelings, which don't matter as much, but I've got the stats and the facts to back it up. In his rookie year, averaging nearly 4 blocks a game, 2 assists, at least 1 3 on nearly 33% shooting, you are not going to find a man who is nearly halfway to 8 foot, have a blend of size, shooting, defense, and playmaking all in one body. He is a historical outlier and can only be compared at this point in his career to the likes of Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and Kevin Garnett. Ever heard of him? In his rookie year, averaging about 21.5 points, over 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, and he's the first player since Tim Duncan to do that. His player efficiency rating surpassed Luka's as a rookie, as well as passing Anthony Davis. When he's on the floor, he anchors their defense by being worth 6.2 points per 100 possessions when he's on the court, and he's already signed a $100 million shoe deal, which surpasses LeBron's, is a European phenom with global appeal, and yes, averaging 20, 10, and 3 in a season puts him in the category for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hakeem, and since 1993, Jordan, Robinson, Duncan, who are all franchise-defining icons that I mentioned at the top of this video, is having those level of impact statistically. And yes, even I have stats on his availability. After more than halfway through his rookie season, he played 85% of his games and shushed a lot durability critics who say that big men and their bodies break sooner rather than later with the NBA's demanding schedule and competition. And still being in his early 20s, the man was born in 2004, which makes him 21 years old. And if he maintains 25, 12, and 4 blocks per game by year 3, he will join Giannis and Jokic as MVP frontrunners for many years to come. To wrap it all up, with his statistical trajectory, physical tools, marketability, speaking multiple languages, relentless and almost toxic work ethic, the probability of him not being a superstar is like less than 5% comparison to similar guys. I really don't think there's an argument. As always, appreciate you stopping by. This is a topic that we will continue to debate, an oldie but a goodie, and I ultimately cannot wait to have this conversation with you in the comments. Drop a like, drop a subscribe. I will see you next time.